All right, we're going to continue with section 3-4. In fact, we're going to break this up into 3 different sections. So this is the second one, part B. That's why I put a B right there. Uh-oh, this screen's acting up again. Don't know what I just did. I'm not even moving anything. Look, it's acting weird, isn't it? See how it's shaking? Something wrong with the cable. I don't think it's the connection. I think it's the cable itself. Let's see if it comes on now. All right, it's not shaking. We'll see if that works. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about this. Let's do this. Everybody ready? What if I gave you a little number line here? I'm not going to even start at 0. All right, I'm just going to put some. All right, so I got a little line segment. I got 2 endpoints. And let's say this was at, I don't know, I'll use the same numbers I did in the last class. Worked out pretty good. Let's say here's a number line. This is at 3. So where would 0 be? 0 would be down over here to the left. Agreed? Okay, I'm only picking from 3 to 13. But I am going to ask you to find, what do you think? The midpoint. What do you think that means? It's right there in the word. The middle, exactly. Okay, I'm going to find the point that's in the middle. Okay, so if I select this little line segment, see that little blue dot right there? That tells me exactly where the midpoint is. So I'll put a little dot right there. See that point right there? Where is it? It's in the middle. It's at the what? Midpoint. Right, let's start saying that instead of middle. Everybody good with that? All right, so this is at the midpoint. What I want you to do is I want you to figure out on this number line, if this is 3 on the number line and this is 13 on the number line, I want you to figure out what point is dead in the middle, at the midpoint. So sit there and think about it for a second. How'd you get 8? That was quick. Okay. 4.1. 4.1 would be like right here. Okay. Mario already said it. Okay, it is 8. Why is it 8? Okay, where'd you get 10? Zion, where'd you get 10? Because 10, we're going to actually use 10 though. 10's, because I was thinking maybe you were thinking something else that I'm thinking. What is 10? What is 10? 10 is something on this line segment. It's not the midpoint, but it is something. What is it? No, 10's not the midpoint. 13 minus 3. So what did you just find? Listen, guys. You just found the distance, right? So 10 is something on here. So 10 is the distance from here to here. Everybody with me? All right. So, oops, not 10 minus 3. 13 minus 3 is what? But does that mean that's where the midpoint is? No. But it means the length of the whole thing is 10. So what's half of 10? It's 5. So does that mean this is 5? No, because 5 would be over here, wouldn't it? Right? 3, 4, 5, right? So what's the 5? The 5 is that length from here to the midpoint and from the midpoint to the other endpoint. Everybody see that? So how do we get 8? 5 plus 3 is 8. That's one way that you could do it. But there's a better way, a lot better way. Well, not a lot. One step better. Say it again. Yeah, but how did you get the 5, though? You had to do something to get the 5 in the first place. Look at this. I've got 3 and I've got 13. I can do just 2 steps. This takes like 3 or 4 steps to get 8 this way. But in 2 steps, with 3 and 13, I can get 8. What do I do with those 2 numbers? 2 things. I got to do 2 things to them to get 8. Subtract them. Well, we subtracted them to get 10, but then we had to divide that by 2, didn't we? To get the 5. Then I had to take that 5 and add it to the 3. That's 3 different things that we had to do. I can do this in 2 steps instead of 3. 3 and 13. Just do something to those 2 numbers to get an 8 out of it. Think about it. It's like a little puzzle. What can you do to these 2 numbers to get an 8? Just in 2 steps. Look, you got 3 and 13. What is it? Division? 13 divided by 3? That doesn't even come out even. I don't think division's good. You guys are missing the easiest thing. What's the first thing in math that you learn when you're a little kid? How to add stuff up. You got it. Now you got it, okay? So he sees it. Look, what if I added them up? Shh. What if I added them up? What do I get? 16. What do I do with 16 to get an 8? Divided by 2. Everybody see that? So that's exactly how you find the midpoint of something. I could take any points and find the midpoint by doing what? By adding them up and dividing by 2. Okay? The key is to add them up. A lot of people think we subtract, because there's a couple other things, like on distance, we subtracted the x's, didn't we? Subtracted the y's. What do you think you're going to do here? What if this was an x1 and this was a x2? What would you do? You'd go what? x1 plus x2, then do what? Divided by 2. Yeah? Okay. So what if you had, what if your number line went up and down instead of left and right? Okay. So again, I'm just going to make some numbers up. If I could. Why isn't this used to tap so much easier? I don't know. Let's put a negative in here. Let's put a negative 5 and let's go positive 7. All right. So this point right there is positive 7. This point right here is negative 5. What am I trying to find now? I'm trying to find the what? The midpoint. So the midpoint would be about right there. Agreed? Yep. That's halfway. All right. So I want to find what point. Remember, this is a number line, right? Goes from negative 5. 0 would be way down below. I'm sorry, it would be up in here somewhere, wouldn't it? 0 would be up in here. 7's up in here. All right, so you could do this a couple ways, but what's the way that we learn how to do it? Add them up. So 7 plus what? Negative 5, and then do what to them? Divided by 2, and that gives you what? 2 divided by 2, which equals 1. So where is my midpoint? It's 1. Makes sense, doesn't it? Because how far is it from 1 to 7? From 1 to 7? 7? 6. Right. Okay. You've just subtracted to find the distance, right? 7 minus 1, that's 6. Agreed? What is it from here to here? No. Now look. Now I understand what you're thinking. You're thinking 1 minus 5. But it's not 1 minus 5. It's what? It's 6. Exactly right. It's 1 minus what? Negative 5. So look, now, is 1 in the middle? Yeah, because it's the same distance from here to here. Right? Okay? So 1 definitely is in the middle. All right? So let's do this. Instead of calling this negative 5 and 7, let's call this one, it's not x. It's going up and down. So what are we going to call this one? Y. That'd be the y1, and this would be the what? The y2. So how, if it's going up and down, how do you find the midpoint? You take the y1 and you do what to it? Plus the y2, and what do? You divide it by 2. Okay? Everybody with me? So if you're going in the x direction, not yet. We're getting there. We're very close. We're right on the verge of it. If you're going in the x direction, how do you find the midpoint of the x direction? x1 plus x2 divided by 2. If you're going in the y direction, how do you find the midpoint of the y direction? y1 plus y2 over 2. So now, here's what we're going to do. What if I give you 2 points, but this time, it's not just in the x direction, it's not just in the y direction. Okay? What if this was x1, y1, and this was what? x2, y2. How would you find the midpoint? Let's do it. Let's graph it so you can visualize it a little bit. Okay? So what if you had, let's do this in a different color. Let's go green this time. I don't use green very much. What if, I don't know, let's say you had a line segment from there to there. Everybody got that? and there. Where's the midpoint? Well, if I select that little line segment, it gives me that little blue dot, and it shows me exactly where it is. So right there would be the middle. Everybody see that? Okay, that would be the midpoint. So how would I find that midpoint right there? Well, here's one point. Here's my x1, y1. There's my x2, y2. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to find the midpoint of the x, and then I'm going to find the midpoint of the y, and it's going to put me right there. All right. Remember what I'm finding. I'm finding a point, aren't I? You see that? I'm not finding a length, so don't give me an answer like 5 or 7 or 13 or something like that, okay? You're not going to give me an answer like that. You're actually going to give me a point. And how do we write a point? We write a point in an what? Ordered pair, okay? So this is our ordered pair, all right? Remember what we do? Divided both by 2, correct? Now, if I find the midpoint of the x direction, how do I find the x direction midpoint? x1 plus x2. How do I find the midpoint in the y direction? y1 plus y2. It's a weird plus. Let me try that again. Plus y2. And there you go. There's your formula. You got to memorize it, just like you got to memorize the distance formula, okay? You got to memorize this formula right here. It's really not that hard if you think about it. If you think about what the midpoint is, how do you find the midpoint? You add up the endpoints and you do what to it? Divide them by 2. So you do that for the x's, you do that for the y's. And that is how you find that point right there. See where the arrow's pointing? That's how you find that point right there. All right? Now, let's do one with some actual numbers in it instead of x1 and x2. All right? Let's put some real numbers in here. And I'll use the one the book gives you. So the question is going to say, it says find the coordinates of the midpoint. I'm just going to write find the midpoint. Okay? Find the midpoint of this right here, -2, 3, and 1, 5. Now, I'm going to graph it, but you don't have to graph it, okay? I'm just doing it just so that we understand what's happening. All right? You do not have to graph this. Everybody hear me, right? But I'm going to graph it just so it makes a little, at least it does to me. I think it will to you. So it makes a little bit of sense. All right, so here's a graph. Let's plot the points on that graph. -2, 3. Where's -2, 3? -2, 1, 2, 3, right there. There's -2, 3. Where's 1, 5? 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. And what am I trying to do? Am I trying to find out how long that line is? Nope. I'm trying to find what? The midpoint. Where do you think the midpoint is? Probably about right there. I know it's a little small. Let's zoom up a little bit just so you can see it. All right, you see that? That's -2, 3. That's 1, 5. The midpoint should be about right there. Where do you think that is? What's the point? What's the actual ordered pair if I graphed it? You go over what? You only go a half. That's right. See how it's halfway in between? So you go what? -1/2 and then up how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what it looks like it should be. Would you agree with that? All right. So let's see if it actually is. All right, let's do the math and see how close we came with this graph. All right. How do you find the midpoint? Yeah, you got it. Let me change this back to white. All right, so it's an ordered pair. So write your ordered pair. It's the first thing I would do, okay, if you want to find the midpoint. So this is what you would do on a quiz or a test, okay? Do you have to graph it? No, all right, but I just did it so we could see how close we would be with our answer here. All right, so what I'm going to do is put this over 2, put this over 2. Now this is going to be my x's. What am I going to do with those x's? I'm going to add them up. That's right. So this is my x, and this is my other x. So I add them up. Negative 2 plus 1. Everybody see that? Not very hard. Okay, this really is not that difficult as long as you know what the formula is. Now let's add the y's together. I'll put those in boxes instead of a circle. Okay, so those are my y's right here. What do I do with those two? I add those up. 3 plus 5 and divide it by 2. See that? So I found my x midpoint, I found my y midpoint, and now I just put them together. So negative 2 plus 1 is? It's not 1. The bigger number. When you add, you subtract the two numbers, take the sign of the larger number. All right, so it's, no. You subtract, you take the sign of the larger number. It's negative 1. You got to know how to do that. 3 plus 5 is 8, and you divide that by 2. Are we going to leave it like this, though? No, we're going to simplify it. Can you simplify that first one? Nope. So I'm just going to leave it negative 1/2, comma what? 4. Now, does it make sense? Does that answer make sense? Absolutely, because we graphed it, right? And sure enough, that midpoint, where is it? It's negative 1/2, positive 4. And that's kind of cool. I like to see that my graph actually matches up with my work, my algebra, okay? My arithmetic, I guess you could say, all right? So that's absolutely where the midpoint should be. Yes, sir. Yeah, because I can't simplify this fraction, all right? Don't make it negative 0.5. That's right. All right, so that cannot simplify. And don't make it negative 0.5, all right? On these things, we usually just use fractions, okay? Even if it came out to a improper fraction. You know what an improper fraction is? You have a bigger number on top, smaller number on the bottom. Okay, just leave it like that, all right? Terrell, I hope you're paying attention. Been a little silly today. Well, sillier than usual. All right. So, here's your homework. You ready? Well, you should know it because I gave you a lesson plan already, but I'm going to write it down anyway. So, it's section. Call it 3-4B. And it's page 137. And it's 7 to 12. $132. I can't read. Yes, you can. Okay, $132. Sorry about that. There it is right there. Okay, that's your homework. And that will be due tomorrow. Okay, then I'm going to give you a worksheet which covers even more of these things. I want to make sure that we know how to do these things.